Hello class, and welcome to our next video lesson. I want you, before we get into our lesson and our notes, I want you to take a look at this picture, and I want you to think about all of the different forms of energy that you see in this picture. And I want you to think beyond just kinetic and potential energy, which are some forms that we've been talking about over the last week. I want you to think about some other forms that may be represented in this picture. Take about 30 seconds. Okay, class, as you looked at this picture, hopefully you were able to see some other forms of energy represented in this picture besides just kinetic and potential. I'm sure that you noticed a lot of things in this picture that represented some different forms of energy. And as we go through the video, we're going to talk about some different forms of energy that you see in this picture besides just kinetic and potential. First, let's take a look at our learning target that we will be starting to master as we go through this video lesson. Go ahead and take out your energy unit standards and go ahead and add these two learning targets to your sheet. We are looking at S8P2C, which says compare and contrast the different forms of energy: heat, light, electricity, mechanical motion, sound, and their characteristics. So you're going to be able to compare and contrast the different forms of energy based off of their characteristics. So our learning targets are: I can define heat energy, light energy, electrical energy, mechanical motion energy, and sound energy. That's one of our level 1 standards. Once you're able to define them, then you can focus on the second learning target, which states, I can explain the difference and similarities between different forms of energy such as heat, light, electricity, mechanical motion, and sound. So once you've defined them, then you'll be able to identify some of their differences and similarities based off of their characteristics. All right, so let's start looking at our different forms of energy. Let's talk about light energy first. Light energy is known as energy that's carried by what we call electromagnetic waves. Some examples of some light energy might be things like light bulbs, the sun, the stars, or even a lamp would be considered light energy. So light energy kind of provides us with the ability to be able to see different objects. And later on, we will talk about more specifically what these electromagnetic waves are. But just know for now that this is just energy carried by a wave, which is what we call an electromagnetic wave. So these waves are able to move. They are actually in motion. We can't see them, but they are in motion. We can see the light, which is the way that this is carried, okay? But you don't always see it moving, but it is this energy that's carried. So this would be a type of kinetic energy. Make sure you circle or highlight that on your graphic organizer in the proper location. Sound energy. Sound energy is produced when a force causes an object or substance to vibrate. Oftentimes we call this the energy of vibration. This is also transferred through the substance in a wave. Okay, a lot of these forms of energy that we're going to be talking about, they will travel as a wave. Examples of sound energy would be a ringing bell, a radio, or a TV. Now, since we're talking about vibrations here, this would also be a type of kinetic energy. All right, let's talk about electrical energy next. Electrical energy is the movement of electrical charges. The movement of these charges through wires is what we call electricity. And we know that electrical energy comes from the atom. And more specifically, the part of the atom where it comes from is the electron. It's the movement of these electrons which causes us to be able to have electricity. Some examples of electrical energy might be something like lightning, which would be natural electrical energy. You also have batteries, your electrical outlets, your plugs. Those would all be forms of electrical energy. Any kind of device that uses electrical energy could also be considered a form of electrical energy. And since we're talking about the movement of something, the motion of something, this would also be a type of kinetic energy. All of the forms of energy that we talk about will fall either under the umbrella of kinetic energy or the umbrella of potential energy, which is why we're identifying that as we go through these different forms of energy. Mechanical motion energy. Mechanical motion is the movement of objects and substances from one place to another. Objects and substances move when a force is applied. This movement of these objects from one place to another is what we call mechanical motion energy. Oftentimes you can say if something has kinetic energy, it would also have what we call mechanical motion energy because it is moving. So it is also a type of kinetic energy. A train running or a windmill spinning would be examples of mechanical motion energy. So most of the things that you have already classified as kinetic energy would also be considered mechanical motion energy. All right, heat energy, which is also known as thermal energy. Oftentimes in textbooks you will see it labeled as thermal energy, but it's the same thing. Thermal energy or heat is the internal energy of substances. This energy will depend on the temperature of the substance. The higher the temperature is, the more heat or thermal energy the substance is going to have. Examples of heat energy would be a hot oven, the sun, boiling water. This is also a type of kinetic energy. We've learned that when you heat up or add heat energy to substances, they move around. It causes things to move around. So this would be a type of kinetic energy. Last but not least is chemical energy, which is one that's not listed in our standard, but since we've already talked about chemical changes, I thought it proper for us to know what chemical energy is, because that's what this is what is released when chemical changes occur. Chemical energy is the energy stored in the bonds of atoms and molecules. We've learned that bonds is what hold these molecules together. And anytime these bonds are broken, this chemical energy will get released, and when it's released, it becomes or changes into other forms of energy. The chemical energy is the energy that holds these particles together. So the bonds that hold atoms, that holds the atoms, or rather, excuse me, the bonds that hold the molecules together, or holds the atoms together in a molecule, is what we would call chemical energy. Examples of chemical energy might be biomass, petroleum, natural gas, foods, and propane, which is a type of fuel, are all examples of stored chemical energy. Since this energy is stored in objects, then would be our only type of potential energy that we have talked about today. Okay, that covers all of our different forms of energy. I would like for you to go back to that picture that we saw, or we will go back to it in the video at the very beginning. And now that we've looked at some different forms of energy, you can now probably look at this picture and see lots of different types of energy based off the ones that we just discussed. You've got a ringing alarm clock over here, which would represent sound energy. You've got a lamp, which could be light and electrical. You've got the sun out here, which could be light and heat energy. You've got this cat running through the door. That could be mechanical motion. You've got this drill on the floor down here, which has a cord on it. That could represent electrical energy, sound energy. Drills often have moving parts, which would be mechanical motion. So there's all types of forms of energy going on in this picture now that we've kind of went over the 6 main forms that we will discuss. Make sure that you have completed your tip chart. Please make sure that you have included a picture for every single form of energy, and add some color to your picture so it makes your notes have some pop to them, makes them stand out more. Please go back and review anything from the video that you feel is necessary, and have your notes when you are back in class.